Hey, good morning. This is Russ. Welcome back to the shop. Today, I just want to talk about the coronavirus and quarantining yourself. Now, first off, let me explain that my household here, there's two of us. I'm slightly over 60 and I have COPD. You know who is well over 60 and she's a diabetic. So we are primed candidates to have a catastrophe with the coronavirus. With that in mind, I've been listening to it very carefully. The question that we've been talking about for the last 4 weeks, 3 weeks, is should we go into self quarantine or not? And how do we do that? And so we've been kind of looking at that. And believe it or not, we're a little bit ahead of the curve because as of last Friday, we have been self quarantined and we are going to continue self quarantining until we're satisfied that we can stop once we started. So I'm going to go first. Let's talk about the virus itself. First, let's talk about whether or not I should even self quarantine, and what is that? That means that I have cut off all physical contact with anybody else in the world. We are both staying home. We have happened to have enough supplies to make it through the month. And so we decided that now or never, if we don't do it now, but with the coronavirus, the biggest thing about it that has me concerned is you can have it and be carrying it, and you don't know for 2 weeks. It takes 2 weeks before any signs start to show up sometimes. So that alone means that the whole county I'm living now could be fully infected, and I wouldn't know it for 2 more weeks. So, with that in mind, we decided we were going to do this. So we looked at what all we had. We made sure we had everything last week, and we made last 2 runs on Thursday and Friday, I think, is when we did it. We'll say Friday and Saturday was when I did it. I went Saturday morning to the local store, which is in my small community here, and it wasn't too busy. It wasn't too bad of shape, but I got a sense that everybody was really getting anxious, and I did see a couple of carts that were really full, and more importantly, they were in there stocking shelves like crazy. So apparently it's going on even in smaller communities. So after that last visit, we said now. And so we went into self-quarantine. We will not have contact with anybody at this point until probably at least 2 weeks and probably at least a month, quite frankly. And then we'll watch the news, we'll see what's going on, and we'll decide whether we should continue that quarantine or whether it's safe to come out. There's a good chance we can come out for the summer months and interact and be no problem. And then when fall comes around and flu season comes back, it may rear its ugly head and we may have to go back into self-quarantine. But the idea is that we just don't know with this virus whether or not it's going to get us. So now that we are self-quarantined, quite honestly, this could all be for nothing. We may already have it. We don't know it yet. It's going to be 2 weeks before we can now say, yeah, we don't have it. So at that point, then we have to say, are we ready to go back out and intermingle and possibly get the virus, or should we continue to stay in that known condition of not having the virus at this point? So we're going to watch it as we go, but it is a serious, serious thing to have to do this. We are stocked up on everything that we think we're going to need, including toilet paper. She's always been in charge of that, but you'd have to watch my hoarding TP video to understand what's going on there. And by the way, she didn't like that part of the video. Well, it's true. It's funny. And, I don't think it's really, I've seen a lot of people hoard things. I'm a hoarder on some things too. Most woodshop people, tools, hoarding, yeah, we do it. So anyway, I'm getting off the subject. She does make sure that we had everything. We went over the list. So by Saturday, we shut down and now we're completely away from everybody. We're self-quarantined. We're going to stay here in this position. Now, to do that, there are a couple of things you need to keep in mind. So I made a quick list of what we're going to do to help us get through this time period, that you can do to help you get through this time period if you decide to become self-quarantined. And I'll tell you what, if you're retired, whether you live alone or with a partner, you need to make sure that everybody self-quarantines that's in the household at all times. That's the only way that you can be sure that you're self-quarantining. Now, I can go out to the store if I want and come back. My chances of catching it are still minimum, but I don't know for sure that whether or not I got it. That's the thing. And you still, that 2-week incubation period starts over again every time we leave the house. So we're going to take serious at leaving the house. With that in mind, there are some things you should do if you're going to do these things. First off, as the most susceptible group, with us being in the older group and also have other underlying medical conditions, it makes us prime targets for this. And so I decided that probably this week or next week sometime, I'm going to try to get a hold of my doctors and the hospital that I also deal with. It's a group, insurance group here in southern Wisconsin. And I've been very happy with them. But I'm going to start asking them, when the vaccination becomes available, who gets it? And is there going to be a list? Do we start that list now? Should I be on that list? Or do you contact the senior citizens first, or how are they doing it? I'm going to see what kind of information I can find out through my health provider and see whether or not they can help me now or when I should check back. But it's a good idea that if you're going to quarantine, you might want to make sure that when is there going to be a vaccination available? When is there going to be treatment available? And because they're also working on medical treatments to help you through that particular virus too. So anyway, you probably should start checking on those things if you're going to be self-contained. Number 2, no unnecessary field trips to the store or anything, which I said. If you have to go out to a store, what I would recommend to cut your chances down is go to a store that's in a smaller community. If you live in a larger community that has 100,000 plus population, drive that extra 30, 50, 60 miles, whatever you got to. Get out into the boondocks and go to those stores. And that way, they're less likely to have that infection than they are in the bigger town that you live in. So if you have to go out, that's the way I am going to do it. I'm not going to go up to Milwaukee or down to Chicago and go in and get what I need. I'm going to drive the other direction out into Wisconsin, where it's out in the boondocks, and find a town that has and find what I need that way. And even if I have to go to 2 or 3 small towns to find it, I am less likely to get infected if I go that route. So it's just a thought, and it's one of the things that I was thinking about, that if you do have to go out, pick where you're going to go out, because that could make that could give you the edge that you might need to not get infected. If you can work from home, you still don't want any one-on-one or any kind of contact with clients. So she is an accountant, so she is going to, any contact with anybody is done through the mail only, or on the phone, or through some other media like that. There is no person to person at this point forward, and that's what she's been telling them. Nobody seems to have an issue with it, and I don't know why they would. So make sure you do close all those doors of personal contact with anybody outside of your dwelling. Number 5, we're going to start using more stores like Amazon and Sam's Club, Walmart. And right now they're revamping because of all the things that are going on. But even if you're going to do a pickup, which you can do like at Sam's Club where they get the stuff, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get a support person to help me if I have to do those things. Right now, I shouldn't have to go out for, hopefully for a full month, except for maybe if we need to get some more vegetables and fresh, perishable type things, milk and things like that. We definitely can make it 2 weeks. And at that point, one of the things you want to do to plan ahead is you want to make somebody as an outside contact that isn't in this group. For example, I've already made that call. I called one of my sons and I said, I am now going to be self-quarantined at this house, so neither one of us are going to leave. there is a possibility that we are going to be in dire need of something that we can't go out, and we don't want to go out and get it. I am looking to him to go and run that errand for me at a notice, and I'll give as much notice as I can. I explain, but at this point, he needs to do any of those errand runs for me that absolutely has to get done. I said, there may be one trip to the store involved in it. I'll give you a list. You can go to the store and then come out, drop the groceries off, and leave. And then I can take the groceries and take them in. So you need to find somebody that you can trust, that can do that outside errands for you, that is not in the major group of trying to stay quarantined. Because not everybody, if I was young, if I was in my 30s, I wouldn't be quarantined. But I honestly believe that at this point, I would also look around, and you should do that if you are in the opposite side of this. If you are young and healthy, then maybe you don't have to be as afraid as I am. And I'm the one that is self-quarantining. Help me do that, and you can help somebody else that's the seniors that you may know. Anybody that you know, if they're going to go into that mode, ask them if they are. If they are, say, hey, I can help you get things. Just let me know what you need, and I'll help you at a moment's notice. It would be wonderful to pass it on like that. And like I said, if I was in a young age, that's exactly what I would do. Unfortunately, I'm on the other side, so I had to find somebody to help me. Sometimes that's the way life is. So my son has said, yes, this is no problem. He was surprised a little bit that I've taken this reaction, but I think that as this goes on from this point forward, I'm just a little ahead of the curve. This is probably something that they seem to sound like it more and more from the news I've been listening today, is that if you can self-quarantine, and if you're in that prime group, you should self-quarantine. And that's what they're starting to say. And like I said, I've already been doing it for a couple of 3 days, so I think I'm ahead of that curve. But I think that everybody's going to be there pretty soon, thinking the same way I already am. So, should you self-quarantine? Only you can decide that. Can you self-quarantine? You need to make sure you're set up on a few things. So, like I said, I do want to start using stores that I can deliver or at least get picked up, because even if I have to get from Amazon, that's great. They'll bring it right to my door. But if I have to go to Sam's Club where they do pickup, or Walgreens, then I can get my son to go do that for me and just drop it off here. And I'll have it ready so that it's just one quick trip, one trip here, and bada bing, bada boom. So you want to kind of get that organized so that you can still get stuff coming in if you need to from somebody that can do it for you. Look through your whole world. Look at work. Look at your church. Look wherever it is that you can find, and try to find at least one person that can help you through this whole thing if you're going to quarantine. It will make a difference. Sooner or later, you're going to be looking to that person for a little bit of help, and hopefully they'll be able to help you, and you won't have to give up your quarantine because you're out of something. So, the other thing is that sometimes we go, well, I'm just going to do without. We're just not going to go out for it. It's not worth having it. I wish we had it, but hey, if I run out of milk, it's not the end of the world, or something like that. Coffee, that may be a serious problem. Just kidding. But whatever it is, really evaluate and say, hey, can I do without that? Okay, I'm just going to do without it. It's not much longer, and I think we'll be able to get out of quarantine, so I'm going to just do without. Be ready to make that decision and be strong at doing it. Take a step back and say, can I do without it? So if you're self-quarantining, you want to make sure you don't get tempted to break that quarantine, because you only have to break it once to have to start over. You're not just breaking it, maybe catching something, but your quarantine period starts over too if you do something silly like that. So keep that in mind. I'm hoping to get past the first 2 weeks here pretty quick, so I know that we're not going to get sick. And then it's just a matter of staying that way. So keep that in mind if you can do without. You probably should try, and I know this is difficult, this is touchy. If there's any way possible, you want to have an increased amount of cash on hand in your house. Even if you have to get that person at this point, once you're quarantined, they have to go get it for you from the bank. Make those arrangements to do that and let them go get the money. And keep cash in hand so that if you get somebody that can run an errand, or if something comes up and the only way you can get it is if you pay for it, you want that cash to be handy to have on hand. So if you don't keep cash on hand, this is a good time to keep some cash on hand. How much? That's up to you, your lifestyle, and what you're comfortable with. But don't forget that not only food and water, but cash on hand is not a bad thing to have. One last thing I would like to say, and then I'll leave this alone. I know this has gone on, but we are now, like I said, partially into this being quarantined. So it's just her and me. Thank goodness I have my wood shop to go to. She's got her office to go to, so this isn't too bad. But there are going to be times when what I call cabin fever is going to set in. You're just going to go crazy. And it's going to happen, especially if you are quarantined for very long at all. Technically, if you're self-quarantining, and correct me if I'm wrong and tell me what you think about any of these things that I've suggested, or maybe you have new ideas. But one of the things that I was saying to help with that cabin fever is, let's just take some time. Every few days, we'll jump in the car and we'll just drive around. And we'll make sure that when we drive around, that we don't get out of the car and don't get near anybody else, but then we're still quarantined that way. So then we can get out, drive around, and get outside somewhere. And that will really make a big difference. So all I can say is my worst nightmare actually happened this morning, believe it or not. It went on for almost an hour and a half. I was holding my breath. The power went down in our neighborhood again. I went, oh my God, right in the middle of this. I don't need the power to go out. So again, I have some things that I do to help get me through, especially the short term, no power. And it came back on, obviously, because now I get to do this video I was going to do first thing. But it came back on. But whew, that is kind of scary when you think about it. You don't have power and you're quarantined. Now it gets tough. So anyway, keep those things in mind. And don't forget that if you really get crazy, just go out for a drive. Either alone or with your spouse if somebody is with you, quarantining with you. But if you're in the group that I'm in, don't be afraid to say, hey, I'm just going to do it out of caution. Because quite honestly, it's not that big a difference for me as a retired person to begin with. But you really need to consider it. Whether or not you're going to do it, only you can make that decision. Just remember that if you live with somebody else too, and they're of that sick like that, you have to decide whether or not you're ready to put them in that risk zone, even though you might not be in that risk zone. So, try to think outside the box about all this. Anyway, this is a serious subject. I thought I'd let you know that I am gone into quarantine. I will update you if anything changes down the road. And once it's over, I'll let you know. If you have any questions at any time about any of this, or any suggestions or ideas, or, just want to wish me luck, I appreciate it. But just leave all that stuff in the comments. I appreciate it, because I'm still, at least I got my power. So, if you like this video, or you learned something here, hit that like button. Most importantly, though, please come back again, because I'm nowhere near done. I'll be here for a while. So, thanks. Or I should say, we will be here for a while. Thanks. Hey, you have a good day.